Biggest mistakes I've made over the past, well, how many years, 6 years or something? I don't really know, something like that, of training for kind of powerlifting is initially I didn't compete enough, and I had this kind of idea in my head that I wanted to somewhat not come out of nowhere. I wasn't really one of those. I didn't really know about the records. I didn't know anything about it, to be honest. But I had certain numbers in my head that I wanted to hit before turning up to a meet. And the first competition I ever did was a deadlift only meet, because I was pulling 230 at 90 kilos. And as a junior, and I really didn't have much of a clue. I was probably squatting 150, benching sub 100 maybe at the time, so I felt, I wasn't strong enough to compete, so I just, I waited and I did to look stronger. However, the first real competition I did, my first squat was 240, I failed 260, I benched like 160 I think, and deadlifted 260 as well. I waited way too long to do a full meet because I had these ideas in my head about numbers I wanted to hit and sort of come out of nowhere, and I'd look at results online and be like, I could do more than that, I could walk these competitions sort of stuff, and I thought, no, I'm going to keep getting stronger, I come out of nowhere. But I made very slow progress over those years, relative. I mean, I made progress, don't get me wrong, but one of the biggest things I had wrong was just I didn't have a goal with a time set. So it's very easy when you don't have a time, being a meet, in mind. You think you run a training cycle and it doesn't go that well, and then you're coming up to the last week, and because you're not doing competition, you're only testing in the gym, which is kind of bullshit anyway. You think, you know what, I'll just skip it, I'll just skip this, no, it's been a bad training cycle, I won't test, I'll just run it again. And you don't even know if the fucking training cycles worked. Like, I'll just run it again because I don't really feel good this cycle, and or this and that, and you make these excuses up, and you're like, oh, I'll just run it again, that'll be best. Whereas testing at kind of 8 to 16 week intervals approximately gives you obviously an immense focus on your training, because you've got an end goal. You know that you're going to turn up to the Bethnal Green meet in 4 weeks today, and in 4 weeks, whatever happens, like, you're going to be there, and you're going to have to compete, and you're going to have to put up numbers. So are you going to do that last set of squats? Are you going to do your assistance work? Are you going to cop out? Like, you're probably going to be a bit more fired up about each and every training session. And like I said before, a good training session, a good week, good cycle, and etc. It builds and builds. But having that accountability of a real meet can really add some pressure, because when you're just testing in the gym, it's the same old scenario, isn't it? And no pressure, there's probably no results. And I know I've said that quite a few times, but it's I find a pressurized situation can really lead to good performances, because you're somewhat on the back foot, you've got to put a lot of work in. And knowing you're going to perform in front of people just really adds that motivation, like whatever's going to happen. And I wish I was competing more regularly, sooner. I've seen there's so many people in the gym I train with not competing regularly, going nowhere, because they've got no finish date, they've got no point to which they need to test. So you see people just endlessly fucking working out. They're just sort of working out, doing 5 sets, or constantly building, never presenting any overload, never really testing, never seeing if anything is working, just hopping from idea to another idea and never truly testing themselves. Just doing, I'm doing 5-3-1 now, I'm doing this now, I'm doing that now. Did it work? No idea, didn't test, but I liked it, so I'm going to do it again. Why'd you like it? Oh, maybe because it was easy. Without testing, how can you ever know if something worked? You know, obviously you can have like a crazy rep max and stuff, which is kind of cool, but to test it, and to test it under competition, oh my god, the difference it makes. People come to the gym, their own gym, and they warm up in the pace of their own choosing, and they can do everything perfect the way they normally train. And that's not me. And if you're a powerlifter, you've got to get used to being a little bit out of your element, a little bit, because it's not always your gym with your plates on your bar, with your correct warm-up pacing and your correct this, you know, and your squats that are borderline, that you think are in but are actually a bit high, you know. Maybe you would have rushed the rack command, maybe you would have done this, you know. Maybe you're not squatting to depth, maybe you failed technically on some reason you haven't noticed in training, you know. On bench, you don't pause them. You've got a soft lockout when you take out the bar. It goes on forever. On deadlifts, you wear straps a lot. You always hit your deadlifts or ramp them up your legs. Honestly, people go to meets thinking they're going to be this and that and the other, and they walk away often quite disheartened, pissed off, and thought, I really thought I was going to do more than that. You know, I thought I was going to bench 140, I only bench 120. Well, it's because you have a soft lockout, you touch and go there, you never pause it, and you're not used to having to hold the bar before and after the press. So these things really make a difference, and it's just, a meet is a great litmus test, and it's a great, you know, it's a true test. It's not like, it's like for like. And let's not even talk about the weigh-in. Wow, I did the mock meet weighing 109, 108, but hey, the weight cut never affects me. But then I go to do a real meet weighing 104.5 on the day. Oh, I don't feel as good, surprisingly, because I've had to cut weight. So there's another factor involved. So all these things are important. And to do a real meet, it's the sport. You can't turn up to rugby training twice a week, not play any of the games, and say you play rugby. Really? Can you? Don't know. I guess you say you play a bit of rugby, but the sport is competing. And unfortunately, because lack of money in the British powerlifting, and by that I mean the GPF, it's kind of confusing now, it's called British powerlifting. Because of the lack of money, in my opinion, no one's really incentivized to do fuck all. So unfortunately, the meets are very poorly advertised, and that is because you don't get paid very much for doing a meet. So there's no real incentive to do a meet, except for giving back. I've run a meet, and you can get paid nothing. It is completely giving back to the sport. No one's getting rich off these meets. Please do not think that. It really is a long day, and there's no incentive for these people to put these meets on. So often they're not very well advertised. Often they just want to do a meet for their mates and get them qualified, or what was I saying? It doesn't much matter. But either way, there's no real incentive there to get a load of people signed up. So these meets aren't advertised, you know, in the places you may look. If you're not looking on the Great London or the East Mids or wherever you may be based, powerlifting page for GPF, then you probably won't find it. But these things aren't easy, even on the big calendar on the British powerlifting page, they don't advertise. So you have to go around looking on the individual federation pages and scouting for these meets, because they're not going to come to you. Unfortunately, they're not going to knock on your door, they're not going to put a flyer through your door and you think, oh yeah, maybe. Unfortunately, it's just really not that well run. They haven't got an email subscription thing, and they haven't got all these, you know, flyer through your door, post. There's no incentive because there's no money in it. So you have to actively seek these competitions, but competing regularly is so important to become better at the sport. You know, it's, if you're a beginner, maybe 4 or 5 times a year, maybe 3 times a year, somewhere in the region, 3 to 5 times. But it's funny because you find some of the best people in the world, or even just on a national level, are competing very frequently. Because often they just like to compete. Because that's maybe why they're good at what they're doing, because they like the competition, they like to compete, they like to win, they like to at least give a stab at it, maybe get some silverware. But you know, these things aren't easy to find necessarily, but you need to be on the lookout for them. You know, an international competitor might be doing the British in October, and then doing European, then doing Worlds, you know, and then they could be doing like another Western European or something similar to that later in the year. They might do 1 or 2 bench meets. Like these, you know, people are competing 5-6 times at a really high level. So there's no reason why you can't. So yeah, I mean, it's not, you know, people need to compete a lot more, and I wish I'd done it earlier. I would have progressed a lot faster if I constantly had meets, and I started making a lot more progress when I started competing. When the more experience you have, every meet you'll always learn something. Every single meet you will learn something, and you'll get red lighted for something, and you maybe never thought you would get red lighted for the specific thing. Whether it's the weight cut, whether it's this, whether it's that. If you obviously are losing weight, it's just every meet you learn something. And even if you just go to a meet with someone, you always learn something. You always pick up something. But the best thing to do is just compete, and compete regularly. Otherwise, you know, testing in the gym is good, but you don't realise a lot of stuff. Like, your friends will be like, yeah, that's good pause. Like, they start, press, like, gift you on commands, say, yeah, it was probably depth. And then they go to meets and they do so much worse. Maybe 10 kilos less on the squat, maybe 10 kilos less on the bench, you know, and then deadlift maybe even worse. You know, maybe they've never done squat, bench, deadlift. Maybe they've never done them all in one day, and they're so fatigued, and they've got low conditioning, and they really suffer. So it's so important to find these things out. I really wish I had started doing it earlier. I mean, when you've got a date in the calendar and you're like, right, 3 weeks, 4 days, you know, and you're counting down and you're putting all your work, you're going to eat right, you're going to sleep right, you're going to do your extra mobility work, your soft tissue work, you're going to do all these things. You're going to, you know, 3-4 weeks out, you know, depending on what meet it is, depending on what person you are, you know, think, oh, probably shouldn't go out, probably shouldn't have, you know, X amount of beers, probably shouldn't do this, probably shouldn't do that. You think, no, I'll go home a little bit earlier, do the smart thing. Chances are you've got more important training, more, you know, heavier training coming up, so you start making, you know, more intelligent decisions as far as that's concerned. You know, this weekend, you know, I would now, you know, stop drinking beer a little earlier than I would have otherwise, stop drinking this, that and the other, because I knew the next day I was loading it up. So you make little calls like that, you go home a little bit earlier, you're just a bit more mindful, you get better sleep, you feel better. So it's not just about the legitimacy of the competition, it's about having the date, having the time, because as soon as you fill that meet form out and they accept you or whatever, every day is closing in towards that date, so you're gonna be putting in the work. When you just turn up to the gym for a test, what's the pressure really? Obviously you want to do well, but you're not going to look foolish in front of anyone else, are you? You know, no one's going to be there. Maybe your family comes to watch you at meet, maybe your friends do, maybe they just want to see it on Instagram or Facebook. Whatever it is, it means a lot more, you know. Or you're going to meet people there, maybe they know who you are, maybe they've seen you on Instagram or Facebook, maybe they just know who you are, and you're going to look silly. No, you're going to want to go and do really, really well. You know, you go to kill, not be killed, and it's definitely one of those things, and you don't want to, you know, take it lightly. Obviously, you know, it depends what you're in this for, but if you want to do really well, start treating powerlifting like a sport. Start treating it properly. You know, it's like there's a lot of issues with it because it's like something you do on your own. People don't take it seriously. Say if it was a taekwondo or jiu-jitsu or a swimming club, something of that nature, you say, well, I paid X amount for this term, where it may be, and these are the dates I train, these are the times I train, and everything else fits around it. But with powerlifting, a lot of people are like, oh, well, I usually train Monday, but this day I'm going to train Tuesday, and this day, like, I like to try and think about it as strictly as that. Like, I've paid my dues, whatever it is, and these are the days I train, and I'm going to try my best to train those days. Because people see it differently, you know. Oh, well, you know, if it was a swimming club, they'd be there every single session because they paid for the swimming lessons, and they'll be there on time. If, oh, I'll go tomorrow, I'll do this and the other. And when you start taking your training seriously, that's the point where you get to the next level. Those when you start making the serious gains. It's when you start taking yourself more seriously as an athlete and start doing not just the things in the gym but outside of the gym to progress as well. But yeah, anyway, just another one on like one of the biggest mistakes I've made, definitely, and the thing that I impart to anyone that I come in contact with, coaching or not coaching them on powerlifting, is to, when they get to an okay standard of strength, you know, when they've been training for a little bit of time and there's something they're really keen on, do a powerlifting meet. If they're just getting started, maybe go to a powerlifting meet. See what it's like. See if they're really into it. But do a powerlifting meet. And then do one 3 months later. And try and plan your year. Like I've got a calendar. And I already know. I'm doing the Western Europeans. Just as an example, I'm doing the Western Europeans in 3 weeks and a bit. Then 5 weeks after that, I've got the British. And then I think it's like 17 weeks after that, I've got the British bench. And then after that, it'll be a similar amount of time for the All Englands, though the date hasn't been announced yet. And All English bench. And then any other internationals or whatever may come, but those are the things that I'm looking at. And then the British, obviously, again. So already I'm thinking about, in my next year, I'm thinking about 4 meets just in this next year, maybe 5. So you should be thinking about your year. Right, I want to compete. When's the next competition? Okay, cool. Do that one. Looking at the calendar, looking at the big things that are coming up. You know, if you're half decent on a regional level, you know, when's the national meets? When's the All England? When's the British? Right. You know, having a look at your year and choosing what meets you want to do. Being competitive and actually looking at it as a sport and looking at it as a competition, not just, oh, it's something you do in the gym and you can test in the gym and that's basically fine. Because if you do want to take powerlifting very seriously and that's something you're interested in, you'll have a shock when you go to the meets because it is very different.